And we're live. We're joined this hour by Leon Pierce, who is a writer, a producer, a director. When I knew you, you were doing poetry, so I'm really kind of like this is very it's a great opportunity to interview, but it's also a little bit for us to catch up. Um, so like, gee, Leon, how did you become a writer, director, producer, and all that? Tell us how that started.
Yeah, I mean, I just tell people I'm a storyteller, so that still encompasses me being a poet. So still a poet. But I mean, I've always loved telling stories. I've been telling stories for a very long time. Actually, interestingly enough, uh, I'll get to the screenwriting aspect of it, but in first grade is when I started writing poetry. So yeah, I started writing poetry to the I would write poems to the girls that I liked in first grade. And then I started writing like stories in like the second grade actually, and then um yeah, so I did poetry for a long time. I think when did we meet? Like '07?
Like oh, like
Late
09, 08, 09.
'09? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was around since like I think '06. Yeah, I think I was around since like '06. And then I want to say 2012 is when I started like I went back to school for I decided to go back to school for film, and that's when I really got into it. Because I love I love performing poetry. I love writing and performing poetry, but I felt like I had other stories I wanted to tell, and I wanted to explore doing it through a visual medium. And yeah, so I went back to school. I started writing and filming in 2012, 2013, and then like 2014, 2015, I got a lot of work done. And then 2016 was also a good year, uh, with the exception of that's the I got hurt. I got into an accident that year. I got hit by a car, and then 2017 was the rehabilitation, and then 2018 is when I came back on the scene. I did a really amazing short film. I did my first feature. So yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm looking at some of these video shorts that you got involved in producing. So I'm kind of interested. I've never really thought about what will be the role of producer on a short film. So can you tell us what that's like? How did you, like, for instance, tell us about Coffee Lover. How did you get involved in that?
uh, yeah, a friend of mine had kind of like pitched an idea, and I thought it was like a really interesting. It was like something really silly, but I thought it'd be fun, and I wrote it and I produced it, and then I directed it. I think we did that one back in 2014. So yeah, but I mean that's usually how it would happen. Like either I'd come up with an idea, or somebody pitch me something, we develop it, and like we'd write it, and then we'd cast. So I would handle like the casting, getting together the crew. Back then we didn't really have much of a crew. I think a lot back then I had a DP and an editor, my friend Adrian, who shot and edited. I think he's I saw him not too long ago. I mean, now everything's shut down, but he was actually I got him hired at DPL. He was the videographer filming and editing the poets performances at DPL. And I did that for a while too. I was also one of the people filming the performances at DPL for some time. And yeah, and that's pretty much like the role. The role was just putting everything together and making it happen. And that's I'm very familiar with being that type of person that make things happen.
So is that essentially the role of a producer? I mean, I think anyone outside of who's ever been involved in the making of a film, the word producer just it seems it's very mysterious what they actually do.
I mean, yeah, there's actually because it's like so many like variations, really. I mean, in all honesty, though, in most cases, what producer does is they are the person who pulls everything together and make it happen. However, you do have some producers who just go get money, and you do have some producers who, put together, the schedules and the budgets and handle like a lot of the paperwork. So you have like different type of producers doing different type of things. But if you think about somebody like Jerry Bruckheimer, who's a really famous producer, that's what Jerry does. He's the person who's finding the material, finding the talent, finding the money. He's putting everything together and he's getting the projects done. Same for like a Brian Grazer and, some of these other bigger name producers that people may know of. There's the people who's putting it all together and making it happen. I mean, like Spike Lee was also like producing all of his own work back in the day. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a kind of interesting role. I mean, a lot of people, they move from being a writer, of like, short stories or poetry into being like a writer of screenplays, but you actually moved from being a poet and or in the door as a producer. So that just seems kind of like it's an interesting road. That's an interesting road. Not.
Well, I mean, because when you're a writer, like I have friends who are screenwriters. If you're a writer, you're kind of banking on somebody else to produce your work. So I think for me being the type of person I am, I didn't ever want to just give over that power to somebody else, or even, like if I'm writing a story and I want the story to be told, I chose to take the initiative to like work to make that happen rather than wait on somebody to be like, oh, I like this. Let's make it happen,
Yeah. So. Yeah. So tell us about the first short or whatever that you were actually involved in writing and directing.
I mean, the first short film I did is one that no one has ever seen, nor. But I mean, I think that's like the norm for a lot of filmmakers. I think it's the norm for like a lot of artists, to be honest. Like, there's, poets who've written their first poem or series of poems, and they be like, they look back like, I wrote that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it might have some hot lines that they might use later. I mean, that was the case with this short film. The first short film I did, I actually wrote it, I produced it, I directed it, and I even starred in it. And it was about the death of my father, which was crazy. Like the craziest thing was though, prior to my short film, I was doing like a lot of sketch comedy. So when I did this project, not everybody, like a lot of people don't know about the project, but when I did it, people were kind of like caught off guard because it was like, yo, you make us laugh. You know what I'm saying? And they was like, yo, this is heavy. But one of my favorite poems is a poem about my father. And I kind of like took that poem and then I like developed it into like this short film. And which I later developed into a feature screenplay that I plan on doing hopefully sooner than later. It's kind of crazy right now and I'm not able to do anything. But that was my first experience, and it was a lot because I wrote the script, and it also encompassed spoken word poetry, and then I put up the money to make it happen. I starred in it, and yeah, it was okay. It was good. Like for me to like do my first short film, I'm like, okay, that was good. I learned a lot from that experience, and I learned that it'd be best to not star in something that I'm directing. So I think that was the last time. I mean, like doing sketches was kind of cool. I was starting some of my sketches, but doing a short film, or I'd imagine even a film in general, is so much that goes into it, especially if you're like the director. And it was just a lot to take on. So after that, I was like, I'm gonna like cast actors who act like that's what they do, and I'm just going to focus on directing. So that was my first experience doing the short film. It was a lot of work, and I learned a lot. Made mistakes, but that's all part of the process.
Yeah, no, it seems like it'd be very difficult to write, direct, and act.
Yo, Matt, you should have seen your face though, because I was talking about when I was getting ready to talk about the process, and I was like, I said the subject matter. You was like,
That was probably what happened with all these other people. You're telling me all these jokes and stuff, then all of a sudden, like, my dad died. I'm like,
oh yeah, you were like, wow, I wasn't.
I'm still laughing. I mean, like, I don't know what to do with
I
all
wasn't, I wasn't expecting, but also that was kind of like sometimes will be my style of writing where everything will be so funny, then like something serious will happen. Be like, oh shit, and I'd be like, so that's kind of interesting how that happens. But yeah,
setting people up, man. That's what Paul Maybon used to do. He would set people up with, like, make them all laugh and
yeah,
feel bad for laughing.
he's good for that in his poetry, and where you laugh and then you start thinking like, ooh, wow, like that was okay. So yeah. But
all right, so tell us a little bit about I want to get more into the films, but I am curious about talking a little bit about the work you did over the DPL filming and the whole film crew there. Can you talk a little bit about like some of the projects you did over at DPL that kind of got you ready to do some of those stuff?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at DPL, I was kind of already in the process of filming. At that time, yeah, I had a DP editor friend of mine, Adrian. Shout out to Adrian Del Stanch. And I got him hired at DPL to be the videographer and editor there. And then she was like, hey, we could use the extra hand. We'll get some of this filming done. And I was like, all right, cool, I got you. So it was just simple, really. I was just like film the performances. And that was it. It was kind of like it wasn't really anything like major to that kind of like prepared me for what I was already doing, capturing people perform, but
Yeah.
You know what it is to perform at a open mic spot. You perform, so somebody point the camera and shoot. That's kind of what it was. So
did you have multiple cameras, and did you like edit like
yeah, we had a 2-camera setup. We would have a 2-camera setup. So that was it. The 2-camera setup. It was cool though. I mean, one of the cool things about that is I believe in 2015 I got to go to the NPS out in Oakland, and we did filming out there, and we filmed the performances, but we also like filmed like BTS footage and stuff like that. So that was a really cool experience.
So when you were filming, was this when he was putting it on the All Def Digital thing, or was this before that when he was just putting it on his own?
I think when we started, I think it was like a transition into the All Def Digital, because I think they were initially putting it on like DPL, but then I think at that time he was already in talks with All Def Digital, and then it was like a transition into that. So I did a lot of the filming for the video that's currently on like All Def Digital.
Mm. Yeah. Cool. All right, so back to your work. So you make this first film, a very serious subject matter, and you make some very serious mistakes in making it. You you learn from those. And so tell us about your next foray into writing and directing.
Next joint. So interestingly enough, hold on one second. Interestingly enough, after that, basically like every 6 months, I felt like I was doing a project. So after I did that one, my next project was actually, it was hilarious, but it was like, it actually came out good. It actually came out good. My friend pitched me an idea about, this is a comedy, but I guess he had an incident with a girl he was dating, and he was like, I felt like I wanted to kill her, so I had to come up with ideas on like how to not kill her. And he's an actor, and when he pitched me the idea, I was like, okay, how about if we did something called How to Not Kill a Woman? And he's like, yeah. So we did that, and whenever I watch that film, I just laugh. Like, it's funny, but it's like, I've done projects that I would have never came up with the idea. Like, that's not something that I would have came up with,
right,
but it was a fun project.
Yeah. So and, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm looking at your IDB, and I'm just kind of your with IDBM, IMDb, and I'm just kind of I'm just there's just I don't know, I'm just kind of like there's some projects. I mean, you got so many. There's ones that just like stand out to me, and I'm like, I want to ask about that. Why don't I just do that? Why don't I just ask you about some of these one here? Can you tell us about the Happy Hobo?
The Happy. Oh, again, that's like you asked about all the joints that I did it like right.
This is like, hey, hey, don't get mad at me. You gotta talk to the people.
No, so I did it. I didn't write that one either. A friend of mine wrote it. Ross, who he's a great writer. And it was like it was just a funny story, and it involved like a kid who thought he had an imaginary friend that wasn't really imaginary. And then like one of his friends shows up and he's trying to like talk to his friend like, hey, I'm talking to my imaginary friend. But his friend can see the person because they're not imaginary. And it's really just a homeless person who's trying to like get food from kids. That's kind of what
All right. All right. I think I fixed it now. Okay. Well, how about tell us about alcoholics? Eh?
Oh yeah, that's one that I came up with actually through a conversation I had with somebody who was talking to me about somebody who they knew was an alcoholic. And I know it's not a funny subject matter because like alcoholism is like a real problem. But I was like, when people are drunk,
Yeah.
they say and do like crazy shit. So I made it where these two friends basically, if you think about like a film like Old School or like Animal House and things like that, where these two friends they get drunk, get pulled over by the cops, and they like one of the dudes like pees on the cops, like pees on the cop, and the other dude like is running down the street streaking, and this leads to them being sent to like have to do like like go to AA meetings, and when they show up to the AA meetings, they're drunk, and not only are they drunk, they're trying to get other people drunk at the AA meetings, and it was just really crazy. I mean, it did end with them deciding like, hey, what are our reasons for being alcoholics, and then like we need to address those things, like we need to fix those things. So yeah, it did end on like a revelation, but prior to that a lot of hilarity ensued. So
All right, how about let's switch it up. Let's see where we can take this. How about the Guardian Angel?
that was an action project. That was really like a teaser. It wasn't even like, I don't know if it was like a short film. It was like a 2 minute teaser to an idea I had about an assassin who's sent to kill uh, a husband and wife, but the wife's pregnant, and he decides not to kill them because he like recently had lost his child.
Yeah.
And he decides to not kill them, but that leads to people pretty much coming to like not just kill them, but also kill him, and then he has to like protect them. So that I shot like something that conveyed that idea, but it wasn't like an actual film. If that makes sense. Yeah.
How about Clearinghouse Sweepstakes?
That was a sketch. That was a sketch. That was a sketch about somebody showed up to what was that, Joy? Somebody shows up to the house. He's dressed like in a suit and everything. He's like, you just won the Clearinghouse Sweepstakes. And then the guy's like happy about it, but he finds out he's actually getting robbed. It's a scam they use to like have people like open the door and come out and like smile because they have like a camera crew, and then they like rob you, and they like videotape the robbery as it happens.
All right, tell us about the work you did with the show called No Chill.
Yeah, with the No Chill, I actually wrote that. There was this actor that I knew. I hadn't worked with him, but he was really funny, and I was like he'd be great for this project. So I kind of wrote the project where he is going to anger management, I mean, a lot of like I don't know, like a lot of my stuff, like you know, you think about alcoholics or even this, a lot of my projects usually would have like this character who had like a you know something wrong with them, and then it's like they're trying to like fix whatever. I mean, that's kind of like most stories, but in the sense of like he had anger management, so he goes to anger management. He gets an anger buddy. And the anger buddy's supposed to help him keep calm, but they're kind of like pissing each other off.
Yeah.
But eventually, you know, it ends with him like he meets a girl he really likes, but he kind of like has an episode, and he goes to his anger buddy and be like, "Hey, can you help me get her back?" You know, so I ended it in a way where it was supposed to be a continuation. But the continuation like never happened. But the interesting thing with that is it's 6 episodes. I wrote an episode a day, so I wrote all 6 episodes in less than a week, and then we filmed all 6 episodes in like 5 days. It was a really quick process um, with that project, getting it made and everything like that. So it was cool. It was really that was like my first web series. So that was like a really cool process, like a continuation of telling the story.
Yeah. What was the idea behind Fight to Live? And where did that idea come from?
That was I had a friend of mine, this Latin actor, Joe Chacon, who I had worked with, really cool guy, and I know he wanted to do an action project. So I came up with this idea, I pitched it to him, and it just gave me an opportunity to experiment and do something different. You know, a fight movie, action. So that's what that was. It was just me wanting to experiment and like do something different. But the story in itself was like a story about redemption. So yeah, it was cool. It was a cool project.
Yeah. How about I'm gonna ask you pretty soon about Welcome Mat, but I wanna
Build up to that.
yeah, I'm trying to build up to that. I mean, I'm kind of see which ones here like kind of interesting. Tell us about Broke Lovers.
Ah man, Broke Lover. That's actually one of my favorite joints. It's one of my recent joints, but it's also one of my favorites. Broke Lovers. It's not a comedy. It's actually a romance drama. There is some humor to it, but it was an idea I had for a long time. I actually got the idea when I went to go visit a friend who just moved into a new place, and it was like empty. And I was like, but it was like a really dope place. And I was like, I wonder if I could like film something here. And the idea that came to my mind was like, what if like it was these two people who lived together, but they were like really broke and they couldn't like afford furniture. Like that's what came to mind. And I had developed this project and about these two artists who were in love and they were trying to work on a project together, that project being a play. And all they really had was each other. And in the actual film that we did, they didn't even have a home. They actually slept in their car. And most of the filming took place down at the beach, which was cool. We got a really great shot of the beach, and we were down by like a PCH, so like Santa Monica, but if you were going like towards Malibu, and yeah, it was great. It was a really great like love story. So that's definitely one of my favorite projects that I've done, hands down. The actors, Ashley and Shane, were great. Ashley Jackson is currently uh, in a Netflix original film, Beats, with Anthony Anderson. Uh, Shane went on to be in the film with Taraji P. Henson and Tracy Morgan. What Men Want. He played Tracy's son.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
they're like phenomenal talent. So it was really great doing that project with them. And that was actually the last short film I did prior to doing my first feature.
So, before we get into your feature, we have a question in the audience. Kwame also asks, what obstacle do you see for Black filmmakers besides funds?
Obstacles
Yeah.
besides money? which is like
specifically for Black
pro-
filmmakers. Yeah.
I think from my experience, it was just this thing of unification and collaboration. And I say that to say that early on, when I started making even my smaller projects, I was working with Black people, some friends of mine who I've known for a while, and there was like a lot of ego going on, and that was like really problematic. And then after that, I decided to like switch up and kind of like do my own thing, and I couldn't really find Black people to work with, you know. And I'm talking about in front of the camera, behind the camera, and not to say they weren't out there. I just wasn't finding them, and the people who I knew personally that I reach out to wasn't like receptive. And I still deal with a bit of that now. I mean, less now because people have seen like what I'm capable of, or they seen the people I've worked with. But I still think it's an issue where there could be more unity amongst Black filmmakers, and I think willingness to like collaborate and work together, and then take egos out of the equation. So that's been like
Yeah.
the biggest
Do
issue.
you think that's something to do with like? Is that something to do with people in general, or is that more to do with like people who have like a first impression of you that they won't let go of? You know what I mean? Like, because like when you meet someone new and you're like, here's my resume, they tend to teach you one way, right? But when people knew you before you developed the resume, they want to like, I mean, it's like your uncles or something like that. They want you, you're still like 10 or something like that. It doesn't, like it's, so people who see you at an early stage in your career oftentimes have this attitude that like, nah, you're not that. You're that.
Yeah, so I think starting out, it was definitely this thing of, I mean, but that's the norm. Like, even if like you're a poet, right? You come around, people like, who the hell is this guy? You know what I'm saying? So I think early on, yeah, that for sure was a thing where people are like, I don't know you. And but back then, the people I were talking to, like nobody knew them either. You know what I'm saying? We all did it like it's like we all are like starting out. So it's like you don't really have anything to lose by working with me. And then so that is a part of it, but I do think it is just a thing in general. Like I think it is a thing in general. And it's not always the case. I have met people who as time goes on, or and I've been doing it for a while, that are very receptive, and it's not even all about the money or anything like that. They're just like, yo, are you telling a good story? Are you going to do a good job? How passionate are you about it? And I think those things matter so much more. I think people are always like, who is this person? Like, what's this person's reputation? How much money am I making? Things of that sort. Is anybody else involved who's a bigger name? Things like that. Versus like, okay, pitch me the story. Because that's how I handle situations. Whenever I meet with somebody and they're like, "Hey, I got this story," I'm like, "Okay, great, pitch me the story." Or like, "What's your game plan?" Like I just want to know that this person's passionate about telling the story, and they have a really great, they have great ideas to go about ways to execute it, and they're ready and willing to put in the work. I think those things are so much more important than, oh, you got a check, or this person's going to be involved, like a bigger name talent's going to be involved. I mean, that stuff is cool too, but if you're putting up money and you got names, but the project's whack, then it's like, what's the point?
Yeah. All right. The moment of truth has arrived. Tell us about Welcome Matt.
Welcome Matt. Okay. Welcome Matt. So Welcome Matt, actually I wrote this years ago when I was just starting out making films. Like probably shortly after I did my first short film, I was like, I'm gonna develop a feature because I'm gonna want to do a feature soon. But I knew I didn't have my money and all my other resources were very limited. So I decided to write a story about a guy who was pretty much stuck in a house. And it was going to be very much of a character study, written in a way where it could have been a play. And writing the story became so much more. It was initially a comedy, and then it became a dramedy about this guy who was afraid to go outside as a result of PTSD. So he suffered a traumatic event, and we don't initially know what that event is. And as a result of that, we're kind of trying to piece everything together. I also made him a tortured artist, where he was a filmmaker and he's trying to make a film in his home. So it had this like meta aspect to it. A lot of people actually asked if the film was like, they're like, is this based on you? And I was like, no. But I could see how they could think that, because it is like this writer director trying to make a film inside of his home with like no money, which is what I was also trying to do. And I was developing this project for a long time, and at one point I almost kind of like gave up. I was like considering giving up on doing the project, and it wasn't until people kept pushing me on. But in 2018, some people read the script. They was like, "Yo, we gotta make this happen." And then I put in all this time, I put in all this work, and we got Taj Mari. A lot of people know him as T and Tamara's younger brother. He had his own show, Smart Guy. He did a lot of stuff for Disney. And when he came in to meet with me speaking about the project, he had read the script. He loved it. And I was like, man, I know this guy is funny, but I'm like, is he going to deliver for the dramatic moments? And he did. But when we got Taj, and then we also got Dion Cole from the show Blackish, the barbershop films, a really amazing stand-up comedian. And everything just started coming together. And I was like, okay, we're supposed to make this film. And it was tough. We had to shoot in 12 days. We were predominantly shooting in a single location for 10 of the 12 days. My crew wasn't like really all, I mean, we had a good crew, but it still wasn't like all that big. And it was a lot. It was a lot because I was still producing the project as I was directing it. And that's, so, going back to like when I did my first short film, writer, director, producer, starring in it, it was the same thing where with this project, I felt like it would have been really helpful had I had more like hands-on producers who were like involved in the capacity that I tend to be when I produce other people's projects. But it still got done. It still got done, and I feel really good being able to have like wrote, direct, and produced like my first feature film project.
Yeah. Well, I mean, congratulations, but
Thank you.
I really think that from what you're describing, I mean, well, let me just ask you, when's the release date planned?
See, so that's the thing. So again, like, you what's the saying? You live and you learn. So basically, prior to making this feature, all the projects I made, I'd write, I'd direct, I'd produce, and I'd even distribute by way of like YouTube or Vimeo. So when I did this feature film, I thought it was going to be simple as I write it, I direct it, I produce it, and then like I sell it, and then it like comes out on theaters or like streaming or however it comes out. I was unaware of like how distribution worked for like films. Even though I went to school for this, it was still like I was so used to just making stuff and then like putting it out. So there's no set release date, and the reason being is I haven't found a good enough home or a good enough deal for the project. People have been like, oh yeah, we can put the project out and it'll be like on Amazon or iTunes or whatever, but we're not gonna pay you. And I'm like, nah. So I haven't gotten a good enough deal. And then people are like, it's some people have told me like it's better to put the film out even if you don't get a good deal, just so people can see like, oh look, you made a film. However, for me, that's not the case. Like, and right now I'm in talks with some people about the project. So I feel like there's a good chance that it'll come out either before the end of this year or like sometime next year, depending on like how soon we get the deal done or and like when the people who like pick up the project decide to put it out.
Yeah.
So it's coming, but still no definitive release date.
Well, I mean, given what it's about, I mean, I think that right now it'll be pretty popular.
Yeah, I've had numerous conversations where it's like, yo, people are kind of like living this right now. And I was like, I know. So there's been some promising conversations, but again, I'm one of those people that things just got to be right, and like more so now than ever. I'm getting ready to do another project, or more than likely we do another project, and I'm waiting to hear back on that. Where I'd be actually out in Atlanta at Tyler Perry Studios, filming out there. I mean, his studio would for sure be the first studio open, and out of all the studios, because of how he has everything set up, like he actually has living quarters on the lot. And it's it's a really huge space, so that may be a possibility of something happening later this year. But for me now, it's just about making the right moves and making sure I'm doing everything the right way. Because if it's not going to be done the right way, then I feel like there's no point in doing it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like do it the right way. But I'm just saying, like, right now, like what the topic and the what it's about. I think that like that would be really like that could be this could be like a breakout moment for you. I mean, this could be really big.
Yeah.
Of course, they don't get ripped off, of course, but like I'm just saying, like,
yeah. I think I got a good. I think I got a window because the way they're talking, they're like, hey, you guys aren't going anywhere anytime soon, which is unfortunate that these are the times that we're currently living in.
But you have like you like I mean like I mean? It's like maybe not on purpose. I mean, obviously not on purpose, but like you're sitting on this perfect project for like the fucking indie breakout quarantine film. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone's stuck inside, and here's a movie about a guy stuck inside. You know what I mean? That's like, and he's like going crazy making a movie about himself in his own house. I mean that. People are doing that shit right now. People who aren't filmmakers at all are doing that shit right now. Fucking filming themselves, their cat, like like oh, I was kidding, like. So I don't know, man. I think you're sitting on something. You're sitting on something that like Providence has put you in a position, or fate or the stars or whatever, put you in a pretty good position.
Yeah. something I'll give some thought to. Something I'll definitely give some thought to. But the way things are looking, I'm sure it'll be out soon, and there's chances it'll be out while the quarantine is still happening because
it keeps getting extended.
Right? They're like we're gonna be like 2022. They're gonna be like 6 more months.
Another 2 weeks. Give it another 2 weeks. I promise.
Yo, I'm just saying it's great. What are your thoughts on this right now?
I kind of feel like, honestly, I feel like everyone gets really mad when you say anything that's like slightly critical or slightly whatever. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. I think that the United States is responding to this, or California is responding to this. I mean, some states are just responding totally. I think that people are responding to this kind of like roughly the way people drive. Like some states are just driving drunk and just doing what they want. But I feel like right now we're like Los Angelinos driving in the rain. Like we're doing things we don't even know aren't necessary. But like at the same time, maybe better to do things that aren't necessary, and then I've learned from the fact than later. Because I look at the Asian countries, right, and I look at like how they had SARS and MERS and a couple other like really horrible pandemics like 5-10 years ago, and so they have experience with this. We don't have experience with this, so like we're like Californians responding to a tornado, or like the way people who aren't from LA respond to earthquakes. Just like freaking out, doing shit that's irrelevant, maybe. So I think that might be going on. I think
we do have it. we do have experience though. You know what I'm saying? I think because how well it was handled. I mean, I did talk to somebody where they was like, they do think that that virus is, you know, of course, different than this virus in a lot of ways. But when Barack came into office in 2009 is when there was the H1N1, right?
Perfect.
A lot of people got infected, millions actually. A lot of people died, unfortunately. But the way he went about handling it, it's almost like I don't want to say it didn't happen. It definitely happened, but it happened in a way where, in comparison to how things are going right now, it's like it was way different. And I think it's just, I mean, you know, in my opinion, if we had better leadership, I don't even think the uh, the lockdown and the quarantine and all that would have been like warranted. I think it could have been prevented. I mean, of course, it's debatable, and some people would disagree, and they'd be like, "Look, it doesn't matter if we had the best leadership in the world, we would still have to like lock things down, and there still would have had to been like, the quarantine." Uh, I disagree, but I mean, we'll never know because of who we have. But I do think that, I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy, man. I mean, me, I'm good because even though I'm not like afraid to go outside, I just kind of like was living like there was a quarantine
Yeah.
before there was a quarantine, with the exception of like going to the movies or like either attending get-togethers that are periodically having get-togethers. But I'm at home, so like it's not really affecting me as much. But I know it's affecting a lot of other people, where you do have people committing like suicide, or like people are losing their mind and people are taking their lives, and like it's like what is it, like 22 million people or more, like almost 30 million people out of work right now, something ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like I'm kind of like in the middle. Like some people are like, hey, we need to have this shut down until there's a cure or a vaccine. And then you have some people like, no, we need to have this open right now. And I'm like in the middle where it's like we need to figure out a better way to do it than we're doing it right now. And if people are like, well, what do you think that is? I'm like, that's not really my job.
I know. I mean, that's what people always do. Like, yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm not sure if like what's happening right now is really working. And furthermore, I was talking to my aunt about this, and it became a really heavy conversation, so we didn't continue it. But I was like, the bigger issue outside of the virus, even though I know that's more of an immediate threat, but just the poor health of Americans in general. I mean, if you got people who are unhealthy, you know what I'm saying? If then you have this comes along, that just increases the chances of them getting sick and not recovering, and possibly even dying. I'm like, we need to address the elephant in the room in the sense where it's like, hey, shouldn't we be talking about having Americans be more healthy, eating healthier, be more active, and be more fit? Because that's an issue, right? I mean, as humans, we're going to get sick and we're going to get better. You know what I'm saying? Like we've been doing that. That's why we're still here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like people act like I know some people want to get mad at me, but people act like COVID is a virus that's going to like wipe out humanity. I feel like to some people that's how they're viewing. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, when people are like, oh, it's like the flu. No, it's worse than the flu, but it's like we're going to survive it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I know some people are gonna be like, oh, so you just want to go outside, and it's like, nah, I'm good. Like I'm here. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm chilling. But I'm just saying, like the negative impact it's having on just America alone. I'm like, that's
It seems like there's more rational ways of doing it. That's all I'm saying. It seems like there's more rational. There's more like, I'm saying, like like you have like a really nasty fucking you get a nasty gash on your fucking hand.
Yeah.
And like the rational thing is to like disinfect it, put some shit on it, wrap it up, whatever. The fucking rational thing is not to chop off your hand, off fucking skin, and then burn the skin so that, you know what I mean? Like, that's not the rational response, right? But you're like, oh my God, my hand's cut. It could get infected. That could spread through my blood. I could die. Okay. Well, I know. Let's chop off the hand and then solder off. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
that's yeah. Not, I think it is a bit. Yeah,
so I think that's what we're doing. I think that's what we're doing. Like the fact that like you got this huge gash in your hand, that's very serious. You need to do something. Chopping off your hand is probably not what you need to do, but we don't know that that's not what to do. So we're just like, we're taking the most extreme measure in order because we don't know what to do. And I think that's true. We're being very extreme because we don't know what to do. And maybe that's the right thing to do when you don't know what to do. But for those who say that this is the absolute right thing and this is science shows it and this and that's, like, that's the part I'm like, get out of here, because like you can't tell me the absolute science on an unfolding situation. Because like 3 months ago you told me it was gonna, like 2 months ago you told me we were gonna have herd immunity. Now you're telling me herd immunity is wrong. A couple of ways you say it operates like the flu. Now you're telling me if I say it operates like the flu, I'm a Nazi. So I mean, you keep moving these around, and it's like, no, man, you can't tell me there's this absolute truth on like a moving, on this moving thing, right?
Yeah.
How dare you say that? And because you said that, you want me to like die, and I have, and I'm diabetic and I'm 60, and you think that like this and this and this. So, like, no, I didn't say that at all. So that kind of thing is, but I understand, because if you're reading news saying like, hey, if you're over 50 and you have, chronic bronchitis or you have COPD, you're gonna die, right? Then of course, like, someone being like, hey man, who knows, que sera sera. You get mad, right? So like, so I get it.
But stuff is changing. Like some stuff remains consistent, and then some information changes. And the reason being is, like you said a moment ago, we just don't know right now. We don't know everything that I guess we need to know to like act accordingly. So, kind of like winging it in a way, where it's just like, yeah, we're taking the most extreme case to this situation because we're like, if we do this, this could like save lives, but in the process, like it's like you're just really no real win right now. But
what, like, I'd rather be here than Florida, though.
You said what?
I'd rather be here than Florida. Holy shit! Like, holy Jesus! I'd rather be here in California, where maybe we're doing too much, than be in Florida, where they're like,
partied up.
Where they're like, yeah, they're waiting for like The Rock. Finally, The Rock has returned to 10,000s of people, dropping the people's up. Holy shit!
Like, I mean, it's crazy, because that's the other thing too, where it's just people aren't just going to be responsible. Like, if people are going to be responsible and be like, hey, look, you're going to go to work. Like, of course, no sporting events, no like concerts. But if people are like, hey, you're going to go to work, you got to be protective. And like, if people took the proper precautions, yeah, but that's not what's going to happen. People be like, hey, everything's all good. They're going to go out and they're going to be like, oh, bars. And you know what I'm saying? Like, they're just going to go out and act like this isn't a thing at all, which just goes, I mean, Americans are like, we got problems. I mean, some places it's clearly worse than others, but I mean, I think across the board, there's just so many people right now itching to be like, I can't wait to get back to the club, man.
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, I mean,
can't wait to get back out there, like sweating and sneezing on each other.
Yeah, I mean, that shouldn't be the focus, man. The focus should be like, man, we need to be getting back to work. We need to be, building up the economy. We got to be, putting food on the table to feed our families. That should be the focus, is to get everything where, people aren't like hurt, financially, mentally, emotionally, because there's so many people who's hurting, and they're going to be devastated. Like, everything's changed now. I mean, even if they open things back up in a couple of months, there are people who are like never going to be the same because of this. So, what made you decide to start interviewing people? Because I've seen you've been doing this for I don't want to say since it, everything started, but
I've done a total. I've actually kind of started doing anything like this 2 months ago, but
okay,
it originally started with just me and this professor doing
okay,
back-to-back conversations about on a different service
yeah,
uh, for on a different platform. This is Zoom, but the other one I was Be Live. So we were
okay,
doing this stuff on Be Live because it's free, but you only get 3 free a month. So we
yeah,
did a couple episodes of these things, and then all of a sudden the fourth one they were going to charge me. So I'm like, oh shit, well I need to buy it. So it costs $30 a month to have Be Live, and I'm like, well if I'm going to pay $30 a month, I'm not just going to do that for 1 week of talking to this guy. I'm going to start doing interviews, right? So I'm all right. I'm gonna start doing interviews. So I did a couple interviews here and there, and then I talked to the people I work with over at the Art Center, at the Dawes Center for the Arts, where I'm the literary director. And I said, like, well, let's start doing this, and we'll have the normal ones on my channel. They'll make it kind of popular, but then we'll do extra special ones for like, like Pulitzer Prize winner type authors, for like these type people, right? We'll do a
yeah,
special Dawes Center speaks, right? So that it's not just me doing stuff, but that the center's doing things in this period too, and the center's doing a lot of other things, not just me, but so the center has also a literary face, which I am basically the literary face
yeah,
of the center. So we still have the writing face, and so they agreed like, okay, well let's set up a Zoom account, let's do this, let's do that. So then I had the Zoom account on this, and so like the Zoom's like $40, so the center's paying $40 a month for this thing. I'm personally paying $30. That's $70 total coming out of somebody's pocket. So I'm like, well, if I'm gonna do that, I gotta work. I gotta make this worth it. So then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do at least like I'm gonna do at least like 10 a week. Right? That's my mindset. But then like that shit that happens to me. I've explained to some other people sometimes. I ended up happening to me. Right?
yeah,
So this like 10 a week goal became like 10 a day
yeah,
because I'm just obsessive like that. I'm just obsessive like that. I'm
yeah,
just more. You know, um, and so like that's just the way I am. So like anything I do, I want to I want to do better than anyone that's done it, whatever that thing
yeah,
is in that. Not generally speaking, but like like very particular, right? So I'll get very particular about things. Like I don't want to say I'm the best poet, but like
yeah,
the best political poet, right? And like I can make an argument for that. I can make an argument for being the best political poet in the country at this point, right?
right,
What I've done. I've gone to Cuba, I've done this and that. So that kind of like that kind of drive, that kind of mentality, I started applying to this. And it's interesting. I mean, you asked me, so I'm answering. But in most of these interviews, I don't talk about myself much. I'm really make sure to make it sure it's about the other person. But I'm not one of these people that interview somebody to get them on to talk about myself. You know
yeah.
what I mean? I hate that shit. So like so tell us about your experiences. Oh yes, well I remember when I was there, and like
Nah. I've been checking out some of the interviews, and you're definitely like asking people questions and giving people who are tuning in the opportunity to like learn about this person, and I think that's dope. I think that's dope. Um, for me though, I do kind of be like wanting to just have like a more of a kind of like talking about me is great. I appreciate that, but then also just kind of like just being more like talking about even like topics, you know what I'm saying, about just things that's kind of like going on, and then getting like your insight on that, or if anybody else, um, wanted to chime in. I mean, people want to know things about me is great, but I'm like, there's so much going on and like not going on right now. So
what's going on?
that can all be like
Going on.
be discussed, right? But no, I mean, I think that's really cool, man. I mean, I've been watching, man. You've been doing your thing, so that's what's up, man. Like I always know, like back on the scene, people always be like, oh, this person is this type of poet and this person that type of poet. So they'd be like, oh, Matt's like the political poet, for very obvious reasons, you know. But to see you take what you like, stuff that you're so passionate about, you know what I'm saying? I mean, of course, you're passionate about politics. And the main reason being is because politics encompasses so much of like what happens to people and doesn't happen to people, and so many people just look at like politics as something that's so trivial. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like these politicians and these policies and these lawmakers and like this really much like runs your life, and people just be like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. You're not just randomly this political poet, right? I'm the political poet because I'm smart. And you're like,
but yeah, because you know how serious this is, especially for Black and brown people, right? Like, and you speak heavily about that. I definitely recall just like about all the injustice the people of color suffered. You know what I'm saying? And how the system isn't set up in our favor. So I was like, but for you to like take that, and be doing poetry about that, and then take it as far as taking it, I was like, yo, that's dope, because not everybody has that thing. Like, depending on whatever type of poet you are, what you're talking about, like that thing isn't like so much a part of a larger movement, and you would get the opportunity to like take it to like a certain type of level, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thank you, but I mean, yeah, but like a lot of it though, like for the interviews, it's the same. It's a lot of the same skills. It's just like listening, like listening, and then asking a question based on what somebody said. So it's basically like I listen to what people say, and then I try to ask them a question based on something they said that I think is going to go in a different direction. And after that, I'm like, okay, then I'm gonna take another piece of information, take another direction. I'm gonna watch the clock and see where we're at. I'm like, okay, now it's time to move into this section. Like so it's time management. It's listening to information. It's a skill set, but it's based on listening. I think that when people think that somebody is like smart or whatever, it's oftentimes that person is just listening and you're not listening. It's not that you're not smart. It's not that you don't have a brilliant mind. It's not that you're not able to think. It's not that it's not that any of us aren't smart or intelligent. You just fucking refuse to listen. You just like refuse to listen to people. You just like we just listen, and then you can pick up on what someone's trying to say, and then you can really intelligently converse. Like, no, I'm not going to listen. You're stubborn. You just don't want to listen. I mean,
and that tends to make people look foolish.
It's not that they're foolish. It's that they're stubborn.
Yeah.
It's not that they're dumb. It's that they're spoiled.
Yeah.
Refuse to listen. And what are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with that? You gotta. It's a character flaw. It's not an intellectual deficiency.
Nah, most definitely. Because I think a lot of people are smart, but in the sense, like you said, they're not willing to listen, and they think they have all the answers, or they just think that they're entitled and they don't have to listen to anybody. Then that's very problematic. But unfortunately, it can be a norm in most cases.
But see, that's why they don't get anything done. And people like that don't get anything done, and they don't ever advance because they can't network with anybody and they can't build with anybody. They just they get frustrated. They get mad. They talk a bunch of shit online. They get like 150 likes and they think they accomplished something. That's it. But nothing goes beyond being like popular on social media, other than like if you don't produce things. I mean, there's people who like talk a lot of shit on social media and also are productive and therefore do well. But there are people who just talk shit on social media but don't ever produce a book, don't ever make a film, don't even write a poem, but they just talk shit online. And all these people are like, yeah. So all these other people who don't do shit identify with this person as like this, this great shit talker, boost them up, and then they think like they accomplished something. But
that's a lot easier to like. That's a lot easier to take it now. We have the president that we have. Yo, here's the thing. I don't like Trump, but I will say I will say a couple of things. One, he is the most entertaining president we've ever had, hands down. I don't need my president to be that entertaining, but he is. That dude is extremely confident. Like, I could see how people would believe him. I mean, like, at the same time, I don't, because the things he says don't sound true, but he says it with so much confidence where even if you be like, I don't think that's true, but you'd be like, maybe it is true. Like he says it with that much confidence. So it's just like, and you know, I can see why he has supporters, because if you are if you are far left and you're liberal, and I do consider myself to be liberal, you would think that people who support him don't even exist, but they do. Like he's just catering. He's an entertainer in a lot of ways, like a comedian, just catering to his audience, right? Yeah. So those people are for sure a bigger issue than Trump. And what's even a bigger issue is people like being oblivious that these people exist. Like I've seen interviews with his supporters where people are like, would they ask him a question like, do you think it was wrong when he said a woman can't be a president? And a woman, oh yeah, women can't be president. They're really emotional. They'll start a lot of wars. And then the interview was like, you do realize every major war in the history of human civilization has been started by men.
Right. But then he's on to the next thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. That's the thing. Like you'll be talking about something that's really crazy, yeah. And before you can finish talking about that, he's done 12 more crazy things. Like yeah. It's so like it's almost surreal. It's almost surreal, but I think that just goes to the point where when you were talking about like people talking shit, and then people just like being like in that because they're just like, yeah, like people don't want to say things themselves, but they love co-signing what other people say that they're thinking. And you have so many people thinking like nonsense. So now you have this person who comes along and he's saying all the things that you're not even supposed to be saying, but now he's the president of the United States. So it's just like, okay.
I want to ask you though,
when the president says,
yeah. As a poet and as a writer, when you see his tweets and you see not necessarily the content, but the form, right? Yeah. His choice of adjectives are very bizarre to me, and his choice of capitalization is also very bizarre to me.
No. I mean, like honestly. I think that's like the only people who are defending that are people who don't really read and write well. Because I'm like, like the way he like tweets, I'm like, man, like it just seems he received like very little to any education. And I'm like, how do you defend that? Like if you are a supporter of that, like of that person, how do you defend somebody speaking the way that he speaks?
Okay, so I've never seen anyone combine these words. Very stable genius. I've never seen that word combination in my life. That was new. Very stable genius. Another one I've never seen. I mean, these are just off the top of my head. I have to go look for more of them. I'm sure I'll find a bunch. Tremendous control. I've never heard anyone say the situation is under tremendous control. I've never heard tremendous combined with control. That it's just a strange word choice. I don't know what to make of that. What do you these two examples alone, what do you
I mean honestly, if you hear Trump talk, he has a very limited vocabulary. And his favorite words are like tremendous, powerful, big. So he almost put those words in front of like every other word, right? Because those are his words. Like you'll have a conversation with somebody,
like control.
He'll be like, we're so powerful, and the control is powerful, and you'll be like, what are you talking about? But it's like if you sit down with Trump and you talk to him, you're going to write out like 20 words top. Versus like most people, you're going to write out like 50, 60 words or something. His vocabulary is so limited. if you talk to this dude for like a half hour, he's constantly using the same words over and over. And they're usually powerful, controlled, tremendous. Winner is another one. He's like, we're winning. We have the best numbers. It's just like everything for him is good.
See, I'm trying to like do it, but these are, if I were to say winning big, that's a very common word. So I even trying to do it. We're winning tremendous. Tremendous winnings.
We're tremendously winning.
Big, powerful. Big, powerful.
Yeah, we're big, powerful, tremendous.
Powerfully big.
Oh man, like it. Yeah, so he clearly listened to that dude talk. Is I think I seen like linguistic, like there was a dude who broke down the way Donald Trump talked and pretty much compared it to like a fourth grader or something like that. Like it was.
Wait. I have never ever heard a fourth grader say tremendous.
No. I mean, like in the sense of not so much like the word, but just like the vocabulary being so limited in that regards. Like not even because even dude, I will have a conversation with my 8-year-old niece and she'll put together words better than that, right?
I vaguely remember asking my my stepdad when I think I was 4 or 5. I wanted to experiment, and instead of asking why did you do that, I said, what was the logic in that, right? But even then, right? So then he got mad because I was like, that's kind of an offensive, like that's kind of like telling someone they're stupid. I didn't know that. I think I was 5. So I didn't know that was like implying he was stupid, right? I heard it and I wanted to try it, right?
Yeah.
But even then, that I was picking up on a commonly used phrase. I really don't understand this guy. Like I maybe when I was that age, I would combine words that maybe didn't belong together. But I'm puzzled.
Yeah, I think it's really puzzling, but I think it's weird, man. Like it's like to me, it's really surreal. And what's really crazy is how there's a good chance he could be the president for another 4 years.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think just being mindful. I mean, like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's like I don't really want to think about it, but it's like when he was running against Hillary, people didn't think it was a possibility. Now we know it's a possibility, and now it's like what do we do when I don't know what your thoughts are on Biden, but I will say when you have 30 Democratic candidates or however many, I don't know, it might have been more than 30. It was a lot at one point, and then we end up with Biden. I'm like, yo, this is not good.
Not good at all. No, this guy's like falling asleep during interviews. He's got accusations against him. I mean, he's going around sniffing people's hair and stuff like that. It's not exactly like
No, because my whole thing is
it's like roping people. I mean, that.
Dude, if you're going to a war, it's like Biden just seems like if you would like to think about a type of person where you'd be like, that person walks funny, he's dozing off. Like you'd be like, I don't think this person's the guy. And I mean, I know people have their reservations with Bernie and but you know what's funny? Okay, here's the problem with Democrats versus Republicans. Bernie and Trump are a lot alike. I know people probably be like, that doesn't make sense, but it makes sense in the sense of Trump wanted to disrupt the Republican Party, right?
Yeah.
And they knew that. And nobody liked him. Like none of those other guys liked him. They all talked mad trash. And Bernie wanted to also disrupt things. But they're just like, nope, no disruption over here. And
I hear you.
And so rather than get behind Bernie, they'd get behind Biden. But I'm like, dude, like even when Bernie was debating Biden, it was like Bernie was like going in hard. You know what I'm saying? Even when like Biden was like, he's like, check YouTube. And I was like, he would be saying check YouTube on everything Donald Trump says. But it was just crazy. And here's the thing, even if it's not Bernie, even if it's not Elizabeth Warren, I'm like, man, can we get Andrew Yang? I'm like, because my whole thing is there's so many people I would prefer to vote for than like Biden. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like really the best we got out of like everybody. Because we're not going to get Obama. Here's the thing, man. If you knew about the Bulls in the 90s, you had Michael Jordan, you had Pippen, you had Rodman, and you had like Steve Kerr, and you had like Tony Kukoc, and these are good players. But if you got a pickup game, you're not going to be like, hey, Steve Kerr, I want you on my team and think you're getting Jordan, right? You're not getting Jordan. Like,
right.
So Biden, you're not getting Obama. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's not realistic. He was the vice president when Barack Obama was in office, but it's not going to be the same thing, you know. And I think
I'm at Trump's Twitter, right? And this was like wow! Exclamation point. The front page, front and page capitalized at Washington Post, not capitalized. Headline capitalized reads all caps: a boost in tests, but a lack of takers. All caps. In quotes. So unless the Washington Post put set, okay, all right. We have now. Here's what he says: we have done a great job on ventilators, caps, testing, caps, and everything else not caps. We were left little. He says we're left. Okay, I think we're left little by Obama, over 11 million tests and going up fast, more than all the countries in the world, combined. More than all the countries in the world combined. Why is there a comma there? So I don't know why this comma is here, and I really don't understand why ventilators and testing were capitalized. And if you were going to capitalize ventilators and testing, then you should have capitalized everything else. His choice of capitalization is bizarre to me. And I'm not talking, if everything's in all caps, then you're yelling, right? So if this is cap, is he yelling ventilators? Like, I don't know. And then there's another one just says like a capitalization says transition to greatness, all caps, but there's no exclamation points. So like, when did they? But the one before that says reopen our country, all caps with an exclamation point. So I'm just kind of curious at like his editorial choices. I mean, what are the bases? Like, what I don't understand. Like, I'm trying to understand. I'm trying.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody's trying to understand. One thing that's really crazy is recently I saw an interview where they asked him. They were like, "Hey, what, like, because he's talking about, Barack didn't leave us with anything." They're like, "You've been in the office for like almost 4 years now. Why didn't you restock anything?" He's like, well, I've been busy. I've been busy. They had this Russian hoax, and then they had the Ukraine hoax, and they trying to impeach me. So I can't really do my job. I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, you've been there for all this time, but here's the thing. Here's the thing I will say too. Everybody's still talking about Trump right now, and nobody's even talking about Biden. It's like we know Biden's in a basement somewhere, but it's almost like this dude doesn't even exist. It's like Biden is almost not even a real person, and that's the thing, man. That's the I guess the fuckery of it all, man. It's like so many, even the people who don't like Trump are still listening to this dude and trying to figure this dude out and trying to make sense of him, and therefore he's still getting like all this attention, all this energy, and that's really all he cares about. He doesn't care if he's pissing people off or anything like that. He's just like, oh, they're talking about me. Oh, they're tuning in. This dude was like, my numbers, my ratings are higher than The Bachelor's. Why he's giving a press briefing about a virus?
Yeah, right. So what I thought was the most bizarre episode of Trump's stint as a president and also producer, and you're a producer, right? is the when he was talking about, because he's an executive producer
Yeah,
on The Apprentice still,
yeah,
whatever it was, and Arnold Schwarzenegger had become the new boss,
yeah,
the new
yeah.
de facto guy, and he was talking all this shit about how his ratings were better than Arnold's. Like, this is the dumbest shit. Can you imagine? This is like be like if Oscar De La Hoya would be like, "Yeah, Canelo, he's doing good, but I would have whooped his ass, and I had better sales than him." Like, you're a fucking promoter. Like, what the fuck, right? So Trump is like, "Fuck Schwarzenegger. My show was better. I had better rating." You're the goddamn. You're supposed to like, if Arnie's numbers are struggling, you're supposed to pump them up, right?
Yo, hold on.
You're the producer. What the fuck?
But this goes back to what I said earlier about this dude being super entertaining. Like he burnt Hillary this one tweet where he said, "How is Hillary supposed to satisfy the country when she can't even satisfy her husband?"
He did say that shit. And like, that's like,
but that shit, I was like, oh shit. Like that's what I'm saying. This dude be snapping. Like, I mean, honestly,
he called Jeb low energy, right? Now, like, we all know what that means when you call a man of a certain age low energy, right?
But look, man. I put it like this: if Trump was a comedian, that dude I think would be fucking hilarious as a comedian because dude's funny. But as a president, I'm like, yo, when you vote somebody in as incompetent as this person, and we're not even gonna go down like the long list of like all his like psychological problems because he's definitely insane. That's like, here's the thing: you're trying to impeach this dude off of a phone call. No, impeach this dude off of being crazy. Like, if you're at your job, you hire somebody, that dude shows up and start like throwing gasoline over the desk. You're not gonna wait for this dude to like grab the matches, right? You're like, hey man, you gotta go. Like, I'm just saying, like, come on, man, this dude is for sure burning the country down. And rather than like take the matches out of his hands, we're just like, here you go, and we're just like giving this dude more like lighter fluid and gasoline and matches and everything like that. And that's the thing where I'm like, can't we just remove him off of like incompetence? He's the president of the United States of America, and everybody knows he's incompetent. It's not a secret. I mean, I'm pretty sure if there was a black president in office, they would have tried to figure out a way to remove this person if he was doing things where they were like, yo, this is questionable. You know what I'm saying? And
I want to get rid of him just because he put his comma in the wrong place. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I don't understand. What are you talking about? Yeah, no, that's the least.
Hey, forget. But I think this just goes to show like the state that the country's in, where it's funny because everybody thought we were like really on the right track when we had somebody like Barack Obama, and then they were like, oh, now we're about to have a woman as the president, because everybody thought for sure Hillary was going to win, even though she was, very unfavored amongst most Americans. But they were like, nobody's going to vote for Trump. So we were like, we got a black man. We're about to have our first woman president. And then this happens. And I think that just goes to show, like, people are like, oh, hold up. We're getting too progressive. You know what I'm saying? And now we just go in this opposite direction. And I'm just wondering, like, what's really next? And I'm wondering if I want to be here for that shit. You feel me? Like, I've been considered an exit strategy, because I'm like, if this is the direction that America's going, man, like, you see how good Canadians have it right now, man. If you were in Canada right now, man, you'd be doing pretty good. But so I don't know what's going to happen in a few months, especially because of the pandemic. You think, are people going to go out and vote? You know what I'm saying? If people have to mail in their votes, are they gonna take the time to to like mark everything in and send it off, and to mail it in? So I don't know, man, but I just do my best.
Like, in between Barack Obama, before and after Barack Obama they underestimated me. That's Bush too.
Yeah.
And tremendous control. That's Trump. mean, I think that's the general flow of America, actually. I think that is generally speaking.
Yo. Real quick though, did you see the Obamagate joint?
No.
You didn't see the tweet?
I heard about it, but I don't. I just.
So I saw the tweet, and I
At
think
this point, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not interested. Yeah, but I'm not. You go ahead, but I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even gonna really go into it, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, I've never seen like this dude clearly has nightmares about Obama, man. Like, I've never seen somebody like I don't know what that was like because Obama had to sit down and talk to this dude. You know what I'm saying? And if Donald Trump had to but afterwards he was like, yeah, you know, Barack this, Barack that. I'm just like, dude, why do you he hates Barack, man? And I think he just hates it because deep down inside he just knows like people like him more. And I think I don't think he hates Barack for anything that Barack stands for. I think it's just the notion of he'll never admit it, but it's just like people like him more than they like me, and that's what he hates.
Yeah. So okay, so where can people connect to your work?
YouTube, really. I think YouTube. If you go on YouTube, Insane Genius TV.
You call your shit Insane Genius?
What up?
It's just called Insane Genius.
Insane Genius TV. One word.
That's like Insane Genius like Productions, or that's you.
Yeah.
Oh man, I missed that. I missed that. I missed that part.
I mean, so here's the thing. There's definitely a thin line between genius and insanity, right? Yeah, but I feel like when I came up with the name, that's what it was based on. Was that so many people was telling me that I was crazy. But after I did the research, I mean, they told everybody, you know, who was great or like so many artists that they were crazy, you know, whether it's Albert Einstein or Steve Jobs and so on and so forth. But that's the norm. If you're a creative and, you know, you're thinking outside the box, they're going to be like, oh, you're crazy, you know, but that's really what it was based on. It wasn't even so much me calling myself an insane genius. It was just that being what I wanted, like, my company to encompass was that movement where people kind of like embrace, I guess, they're like, you know, if they're you know, eccentric, or if they're just different, or if they're thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
But they're doing shit that's like kind of like, you know, new wave or just like trend setting or just doing things that's like prolific. And I just thought that was like dope. So that's what that came from. Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, so you're an insane genius. And I'm like, nah, but I mean, that's like the aspiration. No, I mean, no, like my thing is like not saying like, but like it wasn't so much me calling myself that, but that's like that should be the aspiration for every creative. You know what I'm saying? If you are creative,
you know what? You know my like tagline, byline, whatever you want to call it, is the best political poet in America. So I'm never gonna tell you to humble yourself or anything like that. It's good.
No, but I mean, like what Drake said. I told myself I was the greatest before I knew I was. I mean, and I think it's the same thing with Ali. You do have to like, but my whole thing is it's like, so anybody who knows me knows I'm extremely confident. But it wasn't so much of me trying to big myself up, more so than like bigging up a community, you know, or like types of people that I identify myself with. If that makes sense. Yeah. So that's what that. But that's where you can find my work. And then as far as like following me, it's just my name, Leon Pierce Jr. Whether it's, you know, IG, really just IG. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like. I still have a Facebook account, clearly, but I'm on IG. I'm not really on like Twitter or anything else because I'm not really big on social media. But if you want to see my work, it's on YouTube, and you know if you want to like follow me, it's just my name on IG.
All right. Well, Leon, I really appreciate taking this hour plus to talk.
Yeah. It's been man. It's been a minute.
Yeah. Well, we had a lot of catching up to do, man. I'm really glad you're doing so well. I'm really glad that these projects that you kind of I think when we were last talking, you were talking about doing. And I'm glad to see that they've just exploded. So
Appreciate it, man.
All your success.
Appreciate it. And I'm glad to see that you're doing so well too, man. Definitely keep this up. I know you said you're gonna be doing this, definitely until like the end of the quarantine. So whenever I can tune in, for sure will. Yeah, man, and keep doing your thing. Hopefully, once this passes, you know what I'm saying, we can actually beat up and catch up and everything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. In the meantime, man, keep doing your thing. Keep fighting the fight, man.
We'll talk soon, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. You have a good one.